We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set this all in motion. And every American is entitled to those answers, so we can act now to protect our republic.
Well, that was Vice Chairwoman of the January 6th Committee, Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, on the committee's unanimous vote on Thursday to subpoena the former president to testify before the committee regarding his actions on January 6th. The president has responded to the subpoena on Truth Social, saying in part, "Why didn't the Unselect Committee ask me to testify months ago? Why did they wait until the very end, the final moments of their last meeting?" Well, let's bring in our panelists, former legal counsel to President Trump and Newsmax contributor Jenna Ellis and distinguished university professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum. Jenna, Thane, great to have you both here. Jenna, let's kick it off with you. The subpoena is in effect until Congress adjourns at the end of its current session. After that, if Republicans, of course, do take back the House, it would be on them to reissue and enforce the subpoena in the new Congress in January. What do you make of all of this and whether the former president maybe intends to comply?
Yeah, well, this is just the latest of the January 6th committee's partisan hackery and political stunt, because, of course, this is issued just about 3.5 weeks before the midterms, and it's their failing way to try to suggest that Democrats turn out in the midterms because, oh, hey, if you really want to see President Trump testify, then you better vote for Democrats so that we can hold the House. That is not going to happen, and they have only issued the subpoena for him to appear in January, so clearly they are only using this as a partisan stunt. But even if there were time before the running of the clock for them to try to compel President Trump to appeal, the practical reality is that this is a violation of the separation of powers in the U.S. Constitution. And even a former Democrat president, Harry Truman, when he was subpoenaed after he left office by a partisan House committee, wrote a letter to that chairman and said that if the separation of powers doctrine is to have any practical validity or effect, then a former president cannot be subpoenaed by a House committee. Otherwise, while he's in office, he would be concerned about that type of oversight and would become essentially a mere creature of the legislature. But this is exactly what Democrats are trying to do, is to undermine all of the doctrines that we have upheld in our U.S. Constitution, like the separation of powers, like executive privilege, like attorney-client privilege. The Democrats don't care when it serves their partisan interests. But Kilmeny, nobody cares. There was a piece in CNN yesterday that said that voters care more about the price of French fries than they do about the January 6th committee. And I think that tells you all we need to know.
Yeah, that was actually, Jenna, a question that I had put to Congressman Jamie Raskin and Adam Schiff about the fact that this hearing was happening the same day that those CPI numbers were coming out. But Thane, I wanted to get your take on the fact that this was the 9th hearing, and we know that this is not a court of law. It is a committee, but it was designed to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th. And a lot of these members have law degrees. So I wanted to get your take on the fact that there's been 9 hearings on this, and just now at the 11th hour, they have decided to subpoena the former president. How are you reading all of this?
Well, Kilmeny, it does appear for that reason that this is more of a performance piece than something that was intended to have any legal consequence. First of all, remember, this committee only has investigatory powers that have no prosecutorial powers. So contempt of Congress, if the president chose not to answer the subpoena, and he won't, how do we know that? Well, yes, it was the last minute. And secondly, the committee had subpoenaed 6 of his own former advisors, Scavino, Navarro, Meadows, and of course, Steve Bannon, and none of them complied with the committee. And in only 2 of those instances was the subpoena referred to the Justice Department, and only the Justice Department could bring a prosecution for contempt of Congress. And it's very, very hard to bring such a case against a former president. As Jenna pointed out, you know, there are all sorts of privileges, including the most important executive privilege. It would be impossible to imagine that they could bring the president in before the midterm elections. The fact that they would wait until the very end And honestly, you know, the last committee didn't show anything different from the first one, the primetime one. They just rehashed and showed once again the violence of January 6th. They've made no effort really at all to show a causal connection between what happened on January 6th and the actions and words of the president. This is their legal burden. So when you say to me, their lawyers, don't they know something? Yeah, they know that in the United States, you have to show a direct proximate cause between the actions and the harm. And they have, all they keep saying is that the president fomented the violence, but they have no proof other than the fact that he, at worst, seemed to enjoy watching it on television. That seems to be the worst thing you could say about him, but not that he's actually directly responsible in any legal sense.
Yeah, that would be very difficult to prove. Jenna Ellis and Thane Rosenbaum, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, but appreciate those great points and analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up,